Welcome. I'm Alfred Lambrot Weber, and we're here live on Facebook and coming to us from Louisville, Kentucky. I was saying that that's the home of the Kentucky Derby, bluegrass country.
Okay, now
let me just turn off this other.
Welcome. I'm
Sandra Sabatini and Natalie Sabatini. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Alfred. Thank you for inviting us on your show today.
Certainly. The webinar today is the real story on the Agartha to Humanity World Symposium. And that was an event where the inside the Tamarinda Maasen, who is an individual who is a de facto go-between, I would say, a person who is both in the surface population and in the inner earth population, came to New York and led a public symposium. I'm just putting it in my own terms. I wasn't there, but we had an interview with Tamarinda Maasen and some of her staff. And this is part of the coming public of the world of the inner earth, which to me was quite a revelation in the sense that it's really not a place, it's a dimension. And that's not, it took me a while to kind of, oh, that's it. In other words, we're in 3D and they're in 5D, sort of. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, I guess, but that's sort of the essential simplified picture that I've been walking around with. And I look forward to learning more. And so in this program, we'll be learning the inside story. We need to hear the truth that was revealed in that event, and what this means for humanity and what is next. And so I'm very eager to that. I'm sure that people watching live now and will be watching this as it becomes a news documentary on Exopolitics TV, on News Inside Out, on Omniverse TV, various channels, we'll be eagerly looking forward to. So, with that said, over to you both.
Well, thank you, Alfred. Thank you for inviting us onto your program. It's been a long time coming, and both Natalie and I are very honored to be on your show today. I guess, where shall we begin? Maybe letting folks know a little bit about us, Alfred? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. My name, of course, is Sandra Sabatini. I have been in broadcasting now for over 9 years, and that was kind of like an outreach that started from my affiliations with certain individuals. My background is quite diverse. You could say that from a very young age that I had experiences with those that you would call extraterrestrial beings. I knew them from humans from the future, so to speak. And that's how they introduced themselves to me at a very, very young age. I was told that I would be involved in broadcasting in the future, and that was very important for me to understand communications and to start to learn more about those things as far as media, because it would be a cornerstone in the future. And so that's where I really focused. I started to learn different languages. I learned different things about communications. Got heavily involved in different businesses. And I started my own company when I was very young. I grew out into life sciences, and I'm involved with a lot of different people in academics, different types of sciences, life sciences. I have my own company, Sabatini Multinational Corporation, which is an umbrella corporation of different ventures and cross-channel media, life sciences and future technologies. And let's see, what else can I tell you? I work with different corporations in the public and private sector. My academic background, because I know that's one thing that you wanted to go into a little bit, Alfred, but what I'll say is that I have a very diverse academic background. It wasn't very easy for me going through schooling here in Kentucky. I had to put my own self through school. I've attended various different universities, getting degrees in various different disciplines. Some of those things I'd like to keep private right now because I'm actively involved in some different areas, and some of those things aren't open for discussion. What I will tell you is that in November of 2011, I was sought out by a very prominent biophysicist by the name of A.R. Borden, and I was asked to be a part of his team, and he kind of took me up underneath his wing. And he had been watching me actually ever since I was a little girl, and which was quite a startling revelation for me, Alfred.
Right?
Because his group was heavily involved with the ACIO. And the ACIO is an unacknowledged group that works with interdimensionals, individuals that you would know as extraterrestrial entities, and they had been watching me ever since I was a young child. And it wasn't until a certain point in my life that he wanted to introduce himself to me. And it was at a precipice of a very large event that he came into my life. And that was during the time of the Pythagoras Conference, if you remember that, Alfred. That was a marker for them to step into my life and introduce themselves to me and what they were all about. And as you know, that event didn't happen, unfortunately. We'll talk a little bit about that perhaps maybe in another interview if you wanted to. But these individuals came into my life around that time. Dr. Borden, like I said, took me up underneath his wing. He taught me a lot about black projects, compartmentalized projects. I can't speak today. Scott science projects, different things like that. And he actually promoted me to be his executive director up underneath some of those projects dealing with things that would be considered skunk works. I also was a managing director of some of his PsyOps programs that had to do with remote viewing. They call it in their world nocive tasking. And I was very honored to be a part of his team on that. And let's see, what can I tell you? From there, we were a part of what was known as the Link, which was a interfacing between humans and extraterrestrial entities. We worked a lot with those that you would know as the Anunnaki. And we dealt with them on a one-on-one basis. And I was fortunate enough to be with him on a council that actually petitioned them on the behalf of humanity. So here's a little bit of disclosure for all of you guys today. Also, back in about October 2012, we were a part of an unacknowledged group that actually helped the planet Earth in regards to what happened around 2012. And maybe at some point in time in the future, I'll be able to talk about that. But I think that some of my team members have come out and talked a little bit about what has been done around some of those projects. Maybe in the future, I'll be able to discuss a little bit more with you on that, Alfred. But it had to do with the whole 2012 scenario with the Earth. And I think that maybe Andrew Bashago even knew about some of the projects that we're working around as far as the Earth and about protecting the Earth around that time and making sure that everyone would be okay after 2012. I left the Life Physics group, which was known as LPGC, to pursue some of my own business, how would you say, ventures. And we left on good terms, Dr. Borden and I. We were sometimes at different spectrums. He interfaced with a lot of people inside the Illuminati on both the good side and the so-called bad side. And sometimes we were on different spectrums, but we had a pretty good, healthy respect for one another. And he had to do a lot to work on both sides for humanity. And hopefully in the future, people will start to learn more about him and his contributions to humanity and what he has actually done to help humanity. At least I hope so. I know that there's some Facebook groups that have come out about his work and about releasing some of his papers. And I would encourage anyone who's watching this to look up Dr. A.R. Borden and learn more about him. But my journey is continuing. And if I can go ahead and just turn it over to Natalie, for Natalie to give a little bit of introduction about herself and how she became involved in all of this.
Sure.
Yeah. Not as impressive as yours, honestly. It's quite simple. I've always had an interest in extraterrestrials and what people consider the paranormal. It's something that's quite common in my family and well known. It's generational, so it's not too outlandish. I was a researcher in college. I've always liked psychology as well as just cultural studies, perception, and it's quite simple, really.
Maybe they would like to know how you got involved in all this, Natalie.
Wow. Let's take it one step at a time and see where that goes. I don't really know what else to say. Like I said, it's not as complex or as impressive as yours. I have an interest in different things. I've been involved as a volunteer with the World Genesis Foundation, basically just opening myself up to different people and being able to relate those experiences has been what's important, especially with disclosure.
As far as the World Genesis Foundation, what is the World Genesis Foundation?
Right. They're basically an organization that works to bring education and opportunities for everyone because we and they believe that children are those messages that are sent into the future to promote and help the well-being of humanity. So if anything, more than titles or education, it comes down to your heart and where you are coming from as a person for the future, for your progeny, and for society. So that's my focus, really.
And they give a lot of opportunity to youth where there's none around the world.
Exactly.
And if you want to learn more about the World Genesis Foundation, you can go to www.worldgenesisfoundation.org and learn more about that altruistic organization who really reaches out to give opportunity where there's none around the world. I actually drafted Natalie into all this. Her background, like she said, she's multi-generational experiencer herself. Her background is more than what she's kind of revealing here now, but I don't want to press this because I want to make sure that she's comfortable and she's at her own comfort level. But what does all this have to do with how we got involved with Agartha and the ambassador of Agartha, Tamarinda Maasen, is that all these factors contributed to her approaching us to host this event in New York. And I guess what we can say is that we can start from the very beginning, Alfred, if that's okay. of how this all came to be?
You're saying the real story on the
Yes.
Agartha to Humanity World Symposium. And actually, those are very expansive terms. Agartha to humanity. So humanity is a surface, is a surface culture and civilization. Agartha is a dimensional civilization not on the surface. So that's pretty big. So please continue.
Well, I'll tell you that this is a very interesting kind of backstory to the backstory of how Tamarinda personally came into my life. She actually came to me in a dream. That's the first introduction that I ever had with her. And it was over 4 years ago. And she came to me in my dream state, and she invited me to her home in Romania on the surface. And we had a cup of tea together. And what was so interesting about this dream is that it was very real, very vivid. I could taste the tea that I was drinking, and I can also smell the honeysuckles that was in her garden. And it was very vivid. I knew exactly what her house looked like. And she told me that we would be having a conversation in the future. And that was my first introduction to her. She let me know who she was and that we would be meeting in the future. And we had, I just kind of, I'll be honest with you, I woke up after that and I had to sit with the dream for a little bit because of the realism of the dream. I didn't know if it was a dream or if I had actually went someplace. And I kind of feel that it was me being pulled into an alternative reality, so to speak, and having this experience with her. Some time went by, and we connected on Facebook. And yes, she does have a Facebook presence. Her students from the Hyperborean School of Ancient Wisdom had opened up a Facebook account for her. She had been watching quite a few folks, to be quite honest, for a while. And she wanted a better opportunity to interconnect with humanity and learn more about them. So where would you go? Facebook. Mm-hmm. So we connected on Facebook, and I started to talk with her, and I've had a long correspondence with her about being able to connect and learn more about her and those in Agartha. And we had started a cross-cultural exchange, and it started off as doing a small group tour initiative to kind of give people an understanding about Agartha, about the ancient school of wisdom. And I don't think that people really understood or knew what that was about, because they kind of took it as a commercialized tour program. And it really wasn't. It was an introduction to her and to this ancient school. Up until that point, this ancient school had been very closed, very reserved about who they taught and about their openness to humanity, because it wasn't time yet to really allow that opportunity to open up. And she was instrumental in bringing forward the school to humanity. She felt that it was the time for humanity to know about this ancient school. And we're talking about a school that was attended by those like Pythagoras, those that were also attended the school as Joshua, that you would know as Jesus. And some of the places where she was able to take some individuals who did take the invitation and did realize what it was, you could actually walk those same steps as Pythagoras, as Joshua, Jesus, because they were inducted into this ancient school of wisdom. It is known as the school of ancient wisdom that all, I would say, would predate all esoteric mystery schools. And she is the leader of that. She's the master instructor of that. And it ties in with the Salmonary. I don't know if some of your viewers or listeners of this have heard of the Salmonary, but I would have you look that up. They're connected with those from Agartha. And let's see, where can I go from this point forward?
I think the important thing to keep in mind is the fact that this connection with the Agarthans was something that people in the past, through certain mystery schools, had information on. It was a secret for those people, but the fact is there's always been a connection for those who were open and receptive to understanding that information. So this being a different age, a different phase in humanity's evolutionary cycle, it's now being opened up to the public. Now it's a matter of the public understanding, are we open to this? Because it's an invitation that has been extended, not just for those select few who were capable of understanding that consciousness and that divinity, but it's open for all.
Indeed. Also, what I would like to say is that I kind of had a vision about maybe where this would go, but it had always been up to her of what they wanted to do. And when I refer to they, for herself and those that she represents. And she came to me via Skype, because she does use Skype, believe it or not. And she asked me, she said, Sandra, I would like to do an event. We would like to do an event, those that she represents. And she said, I'd like for you to host it for me. Well, when the ambassador of Agartha asked you, would you like to host an event for her and for those that she represents, you take that seriously. I remember looking at Natalie and saying to her, are we ready for this? And that was one of the questions that she herself had, the ambassador of Agartha. Is humanity ready for this? Are they ready to receive this information?
They're always watching. That's what people don't understand. They're always asking for disclosure. They're asking for, to see a spaceship land on their, front yards or their lawns. And it's like, do you not realize you're being watched at all times? Everything that is said, everything that is heard on that collective consciousness on that level is being absorbed. And that's their barometer to understand whether or not they can come forward. And they've always been coming forward in different ways, but now we're getting to that moment. We're basically reaching that threshold of, well, we have to make a choice about where and what direction we're going to go in.
So we told her that we felt that humanity was ready, that humanity's consciousness had evolved, and that they were ready to take the next level. Now, these introductions with interdimensional beings, extraterrestrials, have been all throughout humanity's history. If you remember, quite a few individuals, even in the Bible, having contact with angels. Those were actually extraterrestrial beings, interdimensional beings. And they didn't go through governments. They actually went to the people. So for those individuals to think that these things can't happen on a one-to-one basis, they do. They do. And that's exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to go directly to the people and bypass certain channels.
And protocols.
And protocols in order to connect with humanity on a very personal level.
That's something I think we should say. She was really open to the idea of going out just to the people, out in the open, in public, not charging anything to bring her information forward and her technology. But at the same time, that is not permissible. It would not be allowed in New York in the middle of a park. And it's just something that's true.
Well, the reason why Natalie brings that up is because quite a few folks said, I guess they had a preconceived idea of what disclosure would look like. And a lot of people that we see, Alfred, think that that folks can just show up on a lawn and there not be any consequences for this. There's quite a few red tape channels that certain things would have to be worked out because of the way that governments are and the way that societies are.
And even they have ETs, if you want to call them that, other entities, they have rules about how they should interact with humanity.
Indeed.
So if she were to just appear in her armada, if you will, there would immediately be a response, like just right off the bat from governments. So that would be quite interesting on one level, but not permissible.
There are protocols for disclosure. As you know, Alfred, our governments have been working with different extraterrestrial entities for a very, very long time. And there are certain rules and certain regulations that are involved in exopolitical events. So there couldn't be a just, you know, here I am with an armada worth of ships because of the mass panic that would create. There has to be a responsible way of rolling out this kind of information. We knew that in the group that I was with, and we had certain initiatives that we were putting in place for that. Tamarinda and her group knew this as well. And what this event was a first step in public disclosure for a 7-year period. It was also a way for different governmental agencies to see how people would react to someone like herself stepping forward. There was a lot of people that said this event is not going to happen. It's going to be shut down. Look what they did with Pythagoras Conference. A lot of agreements were made for this event to happen in New York City. A lot of agreements were made by Tamarinda Maasen with certain individuals for this to happen in New York City. This was a very real disclosure event. For example, something that I can share with you that I don't think that she would mind for me saying, that she actually met with President Trump before he became president of the United States in New York City, when he was meeting a lot of different dignitaries, and she actually went and she spoke with him. So that should let you guys know that your president is more than aware of extraterrestrial beings, interdimensional beings. He's quite a unique president all of his own. And he's connected to certain, how would you say, individuals that even control time. And maybe in the future, this information will come out to the public at a later time. But he himself as a president was chosen, just like a lot of the presidents beforehand. And I'm sure that a colleague of yours, Alfred, Andrew Bishago, could tell a lot of folks about how presidents are selected. But if I can go forward just a little bit here, she had a meeting with him, and all this was set up for New York. And she asked me, she said, where do you think that we should have this? And I said to her, I said, I felt like it was best that we didn't have it in New York City per se, that we had it out into a more suburban atmosphere. And we chose a small venue, not too big, not too small, to host this event at. And that's what we did. We chose a suburb. There was a question why that we chose New York City. Because of the, as you know, Alfred, those from Agartha had spoke at the United Nations once before through their representatives. So this was a kind of a exopolitical wink towards that. So we made plans, and we reached across the aisles, and all this was set up to happen in New York for 3 days. A lot of agreements were made. A lot of red tape was cut through in order to make this happen. And prior to that, if I may digress just a little bit, we did a 3-part video series with her. And this was all a part of Disclosure as well. And that was back in, what was it? Just to make sure that I quote this correctly.
2014.
It was in May of 2014. And this was before folks started to talk about Agartha, Inner Earth, the Antarctica areas. And Tamarinda was the first person that brought forward this information. And this is on record, and people can look this up on Google. And after her 3-part series, there was an onslaught of media about Agartha, about Inner Earth, about the Antarctica area that just came out. And certain individuals started to position themselves as being the go-to people for this information. This isn't a mistake that happened. There are certain individuals that don't want this information to come forward. They wanted to co-opt this information. They felt the need to put certain people in the forefront that they can control to trickle out information. But what needs to be said is it's going to come forward. There is an initiative for all this information to come forward, and it had been coming forward since 2001 through a series of stories and information trickling out of Romania from an author by the name of Radu Sinemar. And this all ties in with Romania. It all ties in with Agartha. It all ties in with a discovery that happened in the Bacage Mountains. There was actually a Sphinx and a holographic chamber that was found in the Bacage Mountains. There's a lot of political intrigue about it. It ties in with those of the Inner Earth. It ties in with a prophecy that would unfold to humanity at a certain time that involves the Bompo monks and the Tibetan monks and those from Agartha and Shambhala in the Inner Earth. And all this was written in a book called Transylvania Sunrise. The Romanian version was called Victor de Mort, Victory Over Death. And it was published over here in the United States as Transylvania Sunrise. And it actually discusses all this in this series about the Inner Earth and the connections to the Inner Earth in certain chambers around the world. Those in Romania, those in Egypt, and those in, I believe, out towards Afghanistan and out in Ur. A lot of you guys know about certain things that were found out in Iraq, but you really didn't know about what this was all about. And it had to do with things that had to do with stargates and the Inner Earth. And it was all in this book, wrote by this person known as Radu Sinemar. And we released some of the information on our network back in 2001 about the Antarctic and about a project from DARPA that had went out with a news crew. And people can look this up as well. I know that this has come out recently through people like Linda Motenhow, but we broke it on our network back in, was it 2001, about the Antarctic and about DARPA's involvement and the US Navy space program. And people can actually look that up through a, how would you say, a search engine that looks for different archives of the past. You can actually look that information up for Other World Global Radio, and we actually released it on our network site about this news crew that actually disappeared in the Antarctic, and how that they had connections with DARPA and with the US Navy space program, and about what was discovered there. And this information is now coming forward. And the reason why I'm talking about that is because it all ties into the discovery in Romania, believe it or not. And that goes into more depth in Radu's book about Mysteries of Egypt and the first tunnel, and another book that he wrote thereafter called Transylvania Moonrise. I would advise anyone to go and look at these books when they were published, because it's kind of like a chronological order about how certain things have come forward in exopolitics behind the scenes that you're just now hearing about. You don't have to take my word for anything that I'm saying to you, okay? In fact, I would even say to you, don't believe a word that I'm saying to you. And the reason why I say that is because I want you to do your own research. You have a lot of folks telling you a lot of information right now. But the best thing that I know what to tell you is to go out, use Google, and find the facts for yourself. What I need you to also understand is that a lot of this information is being co-opted. A lot of people are positioning themselves as being authorities of this information when they're just only repeating what they've heard. And it's very important that humanity knows this.
And takes responsibility for it. There's a process of becoming accountable for the information that you are sharing. So, like Sandra said, don't take our word for it. Look it up, follow the story, follow that chronological timeline, and really look and see where those hard facts are pointing to. Because there you will find the truth.
Indeed, indeed. And the great thing about internet technology is that you can look up certain dates and certain information, and you can quantify what we're telling you, okay? Let's see. Going back to the discovery in Romania and how this connects with the inner earth and with Tamarinda Maasen. Talking about Radu Sinamar and all those books and about certain information leaking forward to humanity through those books. The last book that was published in the series was Transylvania Moonrise. And I was lucky enough to be in the back portion of the book. And I want to thank Peter Moon for that, the American publisher of Radu's work, because it really set the stage for the next book that would come out in the series, which was called The Secret Parchment. And that book is so very important for humanity because it introduces a interdimensional being called Mishundi to the public. And this being is tied into the inner earth and is connected to the inner earth. And there was a secret parchment that was given to Radu for this time that was held in a monastery in Tibet. And it was brought forward in the book. And within the book itself is an encoded message for humanity, and is supposed to bring about this evolution to the human being. And that book ties into this certain space-time in regards to the event that we had in New York City, as all these things are interwoven like a beautiful mosaic coming together, revealing certain connections, certain people, certain groups that want to bring forward disclosure to humanity on a larger level. And really what this was all about was consciousness expansion.
If I may say.
Yes, go ahead.
Disclosure doesn't just imply learning about different extraterrestrial cultures or, aliens, whatever you want to call them. It also implies learning who we are, remembering who we are. So from that perspective, it's on a molecular level looking at what makes up our being, our entity, and our soul, and how that relates to the cosmos and those outside. So this is a process of reawakening, like a renaissance, a global renaissance, where we're learning about who we are. And those out there understand that as well. And this is a way of having them, it's like a disclosure to assist humanity in understanding itself. Would you agree, Sandra?
Yes, yes. But going into the symposium itself, we had certain individuals that were going to speak at the symposium. And of course, the ambassador of Agartha was the forefront speaker of the event. And she and I had spoken in great length about the other speakers that would be invited. She wanted to have individuals from the School of Ancient Wisdom come and speak. And some of the individuals were Tamarinda Maasen and Owana Dimble, which were her senior students at the School of Ancient Wisdom that had been with her for a very, very long time. And each one of them had a certain piece that they wanted to contribute to share with humanity. Some other individuals were key individuals that have ties to all of this information in a larger part in disclosure. And those individuals were kind of held back on the website until a time that she said that we could put them on the website. And those individuals were Peter Moon, who was the American publisher of Radu's work. The other individual was Dr. David Lewis Anderson of the Anderson Institute, which deals with time control. People would know of time control in a very loose term as time travel. Another individual that we invited that is connected on a level to reality as we know it is a gentleman by the name of Alexander Duncan Cameron. And this ties into the matrix itself and reality. And we invited him to be there. And he graciously accepted the offer. And he ended up coming there as well. How does all this fit into Agartha? How does all this fit into disclosure? Well, each person had a certain key piece. Tamarinda brought forward, because a lot of people were asking, as you know, Alfred, did this event, number one, happen? What was discussed at the event? Why isn't there footage of the event? Can someone please tell us what's going on? We've seen tremendous feedback from people writing us, people commenting on Facebook about what actually happened. And we'd love to be able to share all that information with you guys today, because it's very important that you know about what each person spoke about, how each person had a certain piece, and what this actually means for all of you, and what this means for humanity, what this means for disclosure and for the future. Tamarinda Maasen, if you would like to talk with what she talked about, because Natalie actually wrote an article that we had on Otherworld Global Magazine about what really happened at the event. You can actually look that up on otherworldglobalmagazine.com. You can look it up on Facebook, because we put it up on there because certain folks couldn't read it for whatever reason on your social media devices, on your handheld devices or whatnot, but you can read it on Facebook, and we have the article up there for you, given a detailed breakdown of what everyone spoke about and a lot more information that we couldn't cover at the symposium with us.
All the details are on the obviously the article itself. The important part was that this was a way for her to gauge whether or not people would be receptive to the information. That was one. Two, they want students. They want students because they want to start initiating this process of elevating the consciousness further. So what she was teaching in this 3-day intensive course wasn't just, just a surplus of information to satisfy a few people. What the main purpose overall was to open up the perception, which once again goes back to disclosure. Other beings do not think like human beings. They are not, their psychology is completely different. So in order to open us up to those conversations, one must be, meaning as a human, you must be able to communicate with these beings and think the way they do. And that means rewiring yourself completely, rewiring your brain, rewiring the way you think. This goes back to these mandalas and what was taught during this symposium, which once again had to do a lot with understanding the basics, fractals, that divine aspect of humanity, looking into how they were created, how they are created. So once again, a lot of information was presented about chemistry, about viruses, how these little creatures and different diseases, viruses are in fact almost like extraterrestrial life forms. So once again, a different way of perceiving reality itself.
Alfred, if we may, I can share with you my screen to kind of bring the viewer step by step of what things were talked about with your permission.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here.
There's a lot of information.
Let's see. And hopefully I can share the screen here. And Alfred, do you see the story here?
Yes, it says the real story behind the Agartha to Humanity World Symposium.
That's correct. And as you can see, that Natalie was the author of this. And basically what we wanted to do is give people an overview of what actually happened there. And as you can see here, Alfred is mentioned because Alfred himself gave an extensive interview with the ambassador of Agartha, Tamarinda Maasen. And Alfred, we're so grateful to you for having such an open heart and being willing to hear what the ambassador had to say. And we're so very grateful to you for that opportunity that you presented. He gave a wonderful interview with the ambassador, and I hope that everyone will go over to his Exopolitics YouTube channel to watch that interview with her, because it's so very important what she disclosed during that interview. But as we go forward, all this started with a press release that actually went out last year in December. And once again, as we said earlier, folks didn't know what to think about this. In fact, some people started to say that it was a publicity stunt because they didn't realize what this was really all about and what it meant for humanity. There was a couple of individuals that didn't know, that have certain connections to Agartha, who Tamarinda Maasen was. And I hope now that once this information has come out, that they're more educated about who she is and the validity of who she is, because she is definitely who she says that she is, and then some, and then some.
Perhaps talking about what she brought forward about
Right.
reality, this not being the reality, the true earth, so to speak. The realm that we inhabit is not the real earth. The real earth is larger, in fact. So
Indeed. She gave a very in-depth presentation about our reality, what we think as reality. And, you know, I think that a lot of people that were there were taken back by what she said, because reality as we knew it changed, ended in 2012. And when you tell folks that, it challenges them in certain ways. She went into great length about what she meant, about how we are all living in a certain reality, and about this not being the original Earth that we're living in. I think that she also talked with you, Alfred, as well, a little bit about the Earth that we're on. She also talked a little bit about, at the symposium, in regards to certain levels and where we're at in relation to the Earth that we're on. And that essentially that we're more closer into the realm of demons per se than we are to the original Earth that we're all trying to get to. She talked about as well different revelations in regards to the human condition. She explained about the inhabitants of the planet, about there being a space, not so much a place, but a space for those from Agartha, and educating people about what that means. Because like you even said, Alfred, there is a process of understanding what that means. It is a reality all to itself, where Agartha is. And she gave an extensive presentation about that.
And how it's not a place that you can visit in your physical body without extensive training. So some of the statements that certain people make in regard, certain authorities on Agartha claiming to go into the inner earth, deep into the true inner earth, Agartha, with their physical bodies is just nonsensical, because there's just no way that you can get there in that way.
And also you have to be invited. People need to understand that there's a mental perception that has to change, number one. And there also is a engagement with inside the human self of whether someone is invited into that place, that how would you say, dimension of reality. It's more like a time-space place. Those are my words. That's how I encode it to fully understand it. She gave the first steps of people to understand what Agartha is, truly what it is. When Admiral Byrd went into Agartha, he truly had the experience. But what isn't discussed is that he actually went into that dimensional shift. He went into that space.
And he was invited.
And he was invited.
They knew that what he was going to do before, it didn't just happen by accident, in other words.
Indeed, indeed. So as we go forward here, she talked about the human condition. She explained those inhabiting, like I said, the play space. Let's see here. How that humanity is going through a transitional phase at this time. Their consciousness is expanding. They're starting to understand and be able to ground this information that's coming forward. She also discussed certain parasites, certain viruses, certain health related information. She herself runs her own clinic in Romania because she wanted a way to connect with other individuals, the human population. So she actually created her own holistic clinic that is very well known in Romania, where she interacts with people on a daily basis, and it's called Shanti Dus. And she discussed many of the things that you know as viruses as being man-made. And she discussed some things that we were supposed to forget, so to speak. But I'm going to remind people here that a lot of these viruses were made by certain corporations. And
with the intention of destroying the immune system, which is the protector, your internal protector. So once that's compromised with something like AIDS, then you basically stand no chance. That's pretty much it, because it degrades the DNA.
Right, but she also introduced to people about certain technologies that are available that she uses that are from, Agartha, that actually changes the frequency to actually eradicate disease. And that itself was a huge revelation about the fact of changing a certain frequency could actually eradicate a certain disease. In fact, all diseases. So as you can say, that itself was a huge revelation there at the symposium, because she actually went into, as you can see here from this photo, she went into the structure of the virus itself, showing the behavior of the virus, how it interacts and whatnot. She also said too at one of her presentations that the power of the mind and our thoughts have the ability to change our cellular structure within 20 minutes. And I felt that statement from her was very profound. It also reflects the work of individuals like Bruce Lipton, the power of the thoughts to actually heal our body. Individuals like Greg Braden coming out, talking about how the ability of our consciousness to be able to heal our bodies. Even at the Life Physics group, we had a technique that we learned of how to heal ourselves using what we call cell speak. And it was a very profound presentation that she gave. We were able to get a little bit of a video, as you can see here, Alfred, if you look at your screen, from my cell phone that she gave me permission to do. We had an absolute no video policy there for a couple of reasons. One, video taken of her does not come out not unless she approves it. Because of her vibration level, I know some people might have a hard time understanding what I'm saying about that, but she herself is an interdimensional being. And if you don't have permission from her to take video footage of her, it simply will not come out. But she allowed this video to be taken. I was able to get it on my cell phone, and it has over 18,000 views since it's been posted to Facebook. And it talks a little bit about the virus, the ways to treat it, what it is. It was very profound what she shared in that little glimpse of that video. Now, talking about video in its entirety, a lot of folks asked us, is there any video of this symposium? I will say, yes, there is video of the symposium. But I will also say, no, there isn't. Because certain folks did not want this information to go out. And this is a little bit of the backstory here, the real story. We had government agents from the NSA, the CIA, the Department of Defense. We had agents from the Chinese government, the Russian government, sitting in the audience with us.
I would say about 50%, was that a third?
I would say a third of the people that had bought tickets were actually agents from different various agencies. We knew that they would be attending, and we hoped that they got a lot out of the presentations that were given. But their presence there made it impossible for us to get this live stream signal out to the people who wanted to watch this program for those 3 days. We did everything in our power, and I do mean everything in our power, to get this signal out. Counteracting certain things that were put on us, but there were approximately 10 vans that were outside the hotel with satellite dishes on them.
This wasn't just an hour-long, 10 AT&T trucks outside. They were there throughout those 3 days. They would just stay there, and there were no issues with the Wi-Fi. This was not maintenance. They would just simply stand by and survey and
And they did not want this to go out. So effectively, they stopped the signal from coming out of the symposium. It jammed the webinar jam server. It stopped the video feed completely. There were parts, and this is something that people can see on the live stream replay, that when folks got ready to speak, that's when the video was completely jammed. Okay? That should say a lot right there. But we wanted to let everybody know that bought that virtual ticket just exactly what happened. And we did everything that we possibly could in order to prevent that, all the way down to the last day, because we wanted this information to get out to you folks. But there are certain individuals that felt this information was not for public consumption at this time. And let me reiterate that. They felt that this information was not for public consumption at this time. Because what was presented at this symposium was groundbreaking. And as we go further along, we'll tell you why it was so groundbreaking. Because it actually had to deal with reality itself. And this goes into Tamarinda Maasen and the use of mandalas. Tamarinda gave he's a monk. He is a senior student of Tamarinda Maasen in the Ancient School of Wisdom. He's connected to those of Agartha, and he was there giving a testimony to his own training at the School of Ancient Wisdom, which was very, how would you say, very harrowing and life-threatening in some levels to attain the knowledge that he was given. He was instructed by 3 individuals that had ties to ancient Tibet and what are known as the Gampo. And one of those Gampo masters had taught Tamarinda about the ancient secrets to mandalas and how that inside mandalas is, and these are my words, the coding, if you were to look at it as a computer program, of which reality as we know it is built upon. Okay? If you understand how to write mandalas, create mandalas, in fact, you can change reality as you know it. And this information is very guarded. And he was speaking openly about this and sharing with people the information about how he creates the mandalas. Let me show your viewers here one of the mandalas here. And Alfred, hopefully you can see that okay.
Yes, this is coming through extremely clear. It's a beautiful image. The entire paper, the image of the mandala, all the colors are coming through extremely clear.
Very good. This mandala here was created for Natalie from Tamarinda. And if you look at the mandala itself, there are a couple things that come to mind. Some of the people that understand CERN will see that in the middle of the mandala is almost like what you would see from CERN. So that can kind of make you think a little bit about what they're using over at CERN in order to open up certain dimensions, certain portals. They're using this ancient information in order to access other realities. They understand this, okay? The little brackets that you see almost look like computer hardware, but this is ancient script. This is ancient, how would you say?
Ancient programming.
Yeah, ancient programming. And what people need to understand is that these mandalas give what I call the source code, which once again is a computer term, to hack reality as you know it. And like I said, once again, if you understand this, you can interface with this reality that we're in, which is very much like the Matrix, in order to change, to modify the reality that you inhabit. And his presentation alone was quite powerful. The understanding of this is quite powerful. Let's see here.
Much was said.
Much, exactly, much was said about this and about the fact of this information coming forward. And Theodore is starting, he's gotten permission to start sharing this information. This was the first step. And there'll be more information coming out from Theodore. I know that he's going to be giving an interview soon. I don't know what channel it's going to be on, but more information is going to be coming out more about mandalas and about creation and about what they are. And I hope that your viewers will stay tuned to more about that. You'll be hearing a lot more from Theodore Maasen.
One thing that I want to also just point out is that these mandalas are not simply artistic renditions of this ancient program. In order to create a mandala, it's a process, it's an extensive process. It does take a lot of energy from that individual. In addition to that, that individual that is creating those mandalas must seek the permission of higher entities, other beings. So it's a permission that must be in a process. Once again, it's not an immediate, I'm going to start, creating this beautiful artistic, software matrix hack, so to speak. It's a process, and it must have permission, the proper permission.
Indeed, indeed. Above everything from this is the fact of this knowledge coming forward, about humanity understanding this knowledge and being introduced to this information in order to help better their own lives. Because once that you're able to understand the basics of this, you can change your life. You can change your reality as you know it. And that in itself is huge, is a huge revelation. Going on to the next speaker that we had Dr. David Lewis Anderson of the Anderson Institute. Dr. Anderson is known internationally as a respected authority in time travel. He discussed a lot about the history associated with time travel, and about how this is closely guarded by certain countries. He discussed where they're at currently with their research, and about the fact of free energy being also mentioned within his presentation, and about how these technologies can bring about unlimited free energy for humanity. So when you look at how this affects humanity as a whole, Alfred, that is groundbreaking as far as having unlimited energy, getting it through these technologies that the Anderson Institute and their partners have in order to bring forward this information. As you can tell, it would challenge a lot of people who have vested interests in different industries if this information was to come forward. And this is one of the reasons why there's so much pushback, because time control technologies is interwoven into UFOs, it's interwoven into energy, and that's why there's such a hard process of getting certain things to disclose, because how all these things interwove with each other. But what he talked about is the collaborative opportunities in the areas in regards to time research. He stressed the moral and ethical, how would you say, consequences that arise out of this time control technologies. And this was really something that he really wanted to hit home on during his presentation. Because there are countries around the world right now that are actively participating in this. And I don't know if your viewers understand that. Time control, time travel is very real. And it's been going on for quite some time. As your colleague has spoken about this, Andrew Basiago, he was intimately involved in some of these projects. Andrew is definitely who he says he is. He's tied into a lot of this information coming forward to humanity. I commend Andrew Basiago for his bravery and for what he has done for our country, and those like him that you'll never hear about, for what they have done in their service throughout time itself. This, once again, this technology is very real, very real. And one of the things that Dr. Anderson talked about is working with his partners to bring forward complete disclosure about this technology to humanity. It's time. And before his presentation ended, he discussed just that and about how that they're working with certain people to bring about this information for full public disclosure. He also talked a little bit about individuals understanding how time travel works, and he's been able to break it down to basic algebra. He has a couple of different videos on his website over at the Anderson Institute, and I invite your listeners and viewers of this program to go over to www.andersoninstitute.com. He has some free resources over there discussing about time travel, what it is, the different time control technologies and methods that will get you up to speed about all this. I would also recommend all the videos in regards to Andrew Basiago and about what he was able to bring forward through his own accounts, his personal testimony. And what I would say too, I'd like to say this. I don't know if you can see me here, Alfred, because I don't know how you have the video set up. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, sure. But on our screen, we're in two windows at the upper right of the frame, and both of us can be seen quite well.
Okay. What I want to do is say on record that the accounts of Andrew Basiago being involved in Project Pegasus is absolutely real. And that was confirmed to me by Dr. David Lewis Anderson personally. So here's some disclosure for you.
Very good.
And it's very fitting that Andrew should be recognized for his contributions to humanity and his involvement in these time control technologies. And I hope at some time space that Dr. Anderson and Andrew can get together, and those who are a part of these projects to come together to unite in pushing this forward for full disclosure about time control technologies.
Excellent.
With that being said, I had the opportunity to ask Dr. Anderson at the end of his presentation, what was the most important thing that he wanted people to know about time control and time access? And he said, and I quote, "The moral and ethical components to time travel and how everything is interconnected." That one sentence is extremely powerful. And I hope that each one of you who are watching this program really ponder that sentence. What I'd like to do is show you something, and hopefully I can show it to you on my screen. And it's not going to let me.
We just went over to a page that had, I think, you and Natalie's bios.
Okay.
And then you brought it back here.
What I'd like to do is I'm going to post a link to Alfred, your Facebook wall, if I have your permission.
Sure.
Giving people some education on the secrets of time travel that was written by Dr. Anderson in his own words. Okay? I don't know, too many people know about what he wrote, but it's on his Anderson Institute website, and it's been on there for quite a few years. And it'll get people up to speed on what countries are involved in this, how far along they were at the time that his article was posted. And what I would challenge your listeners to think about is where this technology is at today. And one of the very real concerns that he had, and those of his colleagues, is the fact of real time wars, and you heard it right, real time wars that are actually occurring right now. There's a lot, I could go into more about this, but the moral and ethical components to time travel was something that he really hit home in his presentation, and about how everything is interconnected. And the creation of what he said as far as a World Time Council to kind of oversee the moral and ethical components to a lot of these experiments.
Because they are experiments, and that's something that needs to be understood, that even within controlled environments, Dr. Anderson made it clear that there were unforeseen consequences, meaning they themselves did not consider the possibility of there being a, I don't want to use the word bleed through, but there were consequences which they did not expect. They were unintended, unforeseen, and that made them, during their experimental phase in their lab, realize, and once again it hit their consciousness, there are consequences to these types of technologies, and we just don't know what we're dealing with yet. And that was just on a micro level. So imagine in a real world application.
I'm glad that you said that, Natalie. And thus, him talking about a World Time Council being created. And when I spoke to Dr. Anderson back, what was it, back in 2001, when he gave us an interview on Other World Global Radio. This was before he even gave Art Bell an interview, by the way. He was on our radio station first, and he broke all this information. He was talking about the time wars then. He was talking about the technology then, and the need for a World Time Council. And since then, this World Time Council has not been manifest. It has not come forward. And some of the things that Natalie and I talked about is the fact of maybe the people becoming more actively involved, demanding information about this. We have individuals like Dr. Anderson. We have individuals like Andrew Bishago stepping forward. We have individuals like Alfred Weber stepping forward and saying that these technologies exist. Our proposition is this: why don't we create that World Time Council on a grassroots level and invite the people that have been a part of these programs and those individuals who are actually conducting these programs to come together and sit and have a dialogue, because everything begins with a dialogue. And we took a proactive approach on our end, and we actually .com'd the worldtimecouncil.org. And we have every intention of creating a World Time Council for the people and connecting it with individuals like Andrew Bishago and Dr. David Lewis Anderson and all those who have been a part of these programs and projects, including the research individuals that are in these different countries and academics, and actually educating the people about these technologies. I think that we should all come together on this, because as you can see in disclosure, it's not going to come from the governments of the world. It will never come from the governments of the world. You are disclosure. each one of you are disclosure. And each one of you can create a difference. You want disclosure. Make it happen. You can do it at a grassroots level. But it requires us all to set our egos aside, our differences aside, and reach across the table. And I know that we can do it. And we're just starting this initiative with the World Time Council. I'm sure that it's going to grow, and it's totally grassroots. We don't even have a page up yet. But if we're not the ones to initiate this, then who else will? And that's the question I would leave to your viewers. But as we go forward, Dr. Anderson once again gave a tremendous presentation, and it was very good to see him again. And I invite all of your viewers to go over to his website at andersoninstitute.com, and even go over to Andrew Bishago's website at Project Pegasus. Is it .net or .com, Alfred?
Projectpegasus.net.
And learn more about these programs, because it's very real, very real. The next person was Peter Moon. And Peter Moon is the publisher, once again, of Radu Sinamar's work, Transylvania Sunrise, Mystery of Egypt, The First Tunnel, Transylvania Moonrise, The Secret Parchment, The 5 Tibetan Initiation Techniques. He is the chosen representative of Radu Sinamar's books to come forward to the English-speaking audience. And he gave a presentation about how he became involved in all of this, and how his journey progressed. Because a lot of people know Peter Moon from publishing the Montauk Project books and the Philadelphia Experiment books by, Alexander Bruce and some of other folks, Stuart Swerdlow and all of them. And he got, an education in all of this through Dr. David Lewis Anderson. And Dr. Anderson had invited him to Romania, and Peter has spent quite a few years in Romania at one of their educational schools over there that they have every year. It's actually a summer camp in the Danube River area. And he's been able to interface with a lot of the Romanians over there. And he was kind of brought into this whole thing through that stream, as you could say. And that's how he met Tamarinda, was through the stream of synchronicity, which seems to just follow him like some kind of synchronicity generator. But he was pulled through all this, and the information was given to him, and he writes extensively about this, and he shared his own personal experiences about his involvement in all this. And he was able to go over to the Begage Mountains and see the Romanian Sphinx, and he shared a lot about his own personal experiences there. And he talked a little bit about the Chaklavina Caves, which has the highest, was it time discharge, Natalie, that he talked about? Time discharge register that has ever been generated. There's a certain cave over in Romania where this time anomaly occurred. And it's on record, and Peter has been able to go over there and see this, and his lovely wife Paula was a part of his travels over there, which happens to be the daughter of Tamarinda Maasen. And what was it? There was a cronkite found over there, a very rare mineral called cronkite that was found over there that is created by this discharge. And for a long time, they thought it was created by bat dung or something like that. A little humor for you guys out there. But it's actually created from this time discharge. And cronkite is a mineral likened to a crystal that is almost like a sapphire blue in color. Isn't that correct, Natalie?
It's almost like an Andara.
Almost like an Andara
like
crystal,
a blue,
almost.
A blue.
But he discussed the holographic chamber over there, and it being very real. He also discussed that people think that Radu Sinamar is a group of people. And he pretty much put that to rest. He said that Radu Sinamar is one individual and that he had the opportunity to meet, or not meet, but knows of. And what was it? He talked a little bit about, the hollow records, the combination of hybrids that were created in these chambers over in the Bukit Mountains, about there being a repository of history left back to humanity that's found over there. Also, he discussed about the new book by Radu Sinamar, and hopefully you can see this, Alfred, because here's the Romanian version.
Oh, it's totally clear.
Okay, and this is the Romanian version of it, and this is going to be actually published in the new year by Skybooks Publications at skybooks.usa.com, by Peter's group, and inside of it is accounts by Radu Sinamar about what we just said. Hopefully people can see some of the images inside the book, but the book has detailed images about the inner earth, how you condition your mind to be able to open it up to be able to have perceptiveness or perception that needs to change in the human being before they're able to experience this, as well as the heart change that needs to happen in order to be able to experience this. But this will be coming out in the new year, and I know that Peter has agreed to give us an interview. We haven't seen him in about 7 years on Other World Global Radio, but he's agreed to give us an interview over there. And Alfred, if you have a chance to speak to him, I would encourage you to reach across the aisles there to him. And
I will. I
definitely reach out to him.
Yeah. We've just gotten this this new webinar technology, and so we intend to use it. And I just like to mention that this is a fantastic thing, and we can accommodate up to 100 panelists. So I just want to mention to you that if you'd ever like to put together some further webinars involving people in Romania, involving people, here in North America, I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to continue the disclosure. Because the webinar technology, which of course we can conduct them up to 24 hours, and we can broadcast them live on Facebooks into groups that have up to 150,000 members, and you don't have that same type of phenomena where a third of your members are going to be spooks. So maybe this would be some of the follow-on. I know that we had some very good interviews, pre-interview work with some of the staff around Tamarinda. So maybe in the future, I'm just thinking out loud here, okay? But we could have a follow-on with some members at the school, perhaps even Tamarinda and some of her staff, and some of the people that have been mentioned here could join. And with this new virtual webinar, we could reach, a much wider audience that is worldwide. And we could do what Natalie was saying. It's like going out to Central Park in New York and saying, hey, let's have a free talk. But this is the Central Park of cyberspace. So I'm just tossing that out. Then now we have this new capability that just came online for us in the last couple of weeks that I'd like to make available to you and to Tamarinda and her school and to everybody that she connects to in Agartha, that I'm quite serious about, because suddenly we can connect up 100 people around the planet as panelists, and all we need is their email to get hold of them. So I'm just saying that that's there, and you guys can get the word out inside of your connections with them and plant the seed, and I'll be sending you the link so they can see that this is the proof of concept. So I'm just kind of promoting future webinars in cyberspace as the world's central park, to take Natalie's concept, which I thought was great.
Yes.
It wasn't originally my concept. She
Well,
she had some thoughts in her mind.
go back to,
Well, I love your idea, Alfred.
sorry?
And I think that it would be a lovely idea. I think it's needed for folks to reach across the aisles. A lot of us know about each other,
Yeah,
but we haven't been able to sit down and have the dialogue.
yeah.
Because either, differences or misunderstandings or not having enough information, and being able to have that platform that you're offering, I think is amazing.
Yeah. During the whole, this is just background, but during the whole symposium era and time period, and at the time of that, I was doing the, preparing for the interviews with Tamarinda, I was hit with a very mysterious phenomenon that took away my voice. Isn't that strange?
It's not too strange for us. We've it's interesting that you said that, Alfred, because there's another component to this disclosure, and it's something that kind of takes the background to all this, but really I think that it should take the forefront, because we have those that are malevolent and benevolent, and who they are and what they represent and their energies. And, there are certain forces that no matter what, they don't want this to come forward because they're very comfortable in the reality that they have created here.
It's their playground.
It's their playground.
Mm-hmm.
And just like every cycle comes to an end. And there should always be balance in the universe. There's always this duality. And when one has more, how would you say?
Overtakes things or unbalances.
Indeed. When one overbalances the other, certain things occur. Well, that's exactly what we have going on here in our reality. You see, the malevolent forces and the benevolent forces both know that there is this polarity and there's supposed to be this balance. And for a very, very long time, the malevolent forces have controlled this planet. And this is shifting, and it has been shifting. And this balance is being restored. And going into what you're talking about as far as your voice being taken, there are psychic attacks, there are physical attacks, there are death threats, there are many darker sides to all this truth, disclosure process that is coming forward that humanity doesn't know about. Each person who steps forward and brings about or wants to bring about disclosure, there's some risk in that. And just like yourself, Alfred, I have experienced attacks on myself physically. I've been run off the road since, 2011, 3 different times with someone trying to kill me before Pythagoras conference. 3 different separate times. I've had energy weapons directed at me to try to stop my heart. I have had a virus, like you wouldn't believe, attack my immune system.
Let's not forget the tornado.
And I even had a tornado that was directed towards me when I lived in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Now, that's amazing that they go to that level.
Well, it was a category, what is it, 5, and it never through the history of Massachusetts did they ever have a tornado. And this tornado was self-directed in a line, straight line towards my condo, crossing a river, which I was told that normally doesn't happen. And by the grace of whatever and whoever, which I feel very fortunate because there was a presence that was around me and protecting me. All of the buildings around me were leveled like an atom bomb. And my building was still standing. And you can actually look this up. I know it sounds pretty extreme, but you can actually look it up for the Springfield, Massachusetts tornado that actually occurred in Springfield, Massachusetts. You can look it up on Google, and you can see some of the photos from that.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and that HARP, or whatever directed energy weapon they use, but I've done studies with HARP with Dr. Lorraine Murray, and she has explained the targeting mechanism of weather warfare with HARP.
Yeah.
And they have that capability. They can pinpoint an individual with HARP. So that isn't so far-fetched. I just wanted to support that scientifically. So
Thank you, Alco. Thank you.
okay, I didn't want to get too far off, but
I love your idea, and I say let's connect with our people on your end and on my end, and let's see if we can't bring them at the dinner table.
Yeah, we have that capability now. We can connect up to 100 people. So we could have a series of virtual webinars that address the Agartha to humanity disclosure issues, and I'll leave it in your capable hands to outreach to the Agartha community. I can and to the exopolitical community. I can outreach to other sectors of the exopolitical community. I wouldn't mind outreaching to the, beyond the exopolitical ghetto, out into, no, really. I mean, this past couple of weeks, they set up a listserv for the 50th anniversary of my law school, Yale Law School graduation. We were the class of '67. And there were senators in there, all kinds of people, and people that are in the norm. I was the only extraterrestrial abductee, and they kind of got a kick out of that. But so I can begin to, and I'm sure that you can too, but we can begin to draw into, especially now that we're coming up to the political season of 2018 and 2020, that let's reach out into the normal fabric. That's not, so that people, because people are at a stage where you can speak to people and they will be able to hear it, because now they have eyes to see and ears to hear.
That's right.
Because the frequencies are normalizing all of this, so we can create this kind of normalized field of people from all walks of life, from Agartha go-betweeners like the ambassador, and then her students and other people, and then people who are more in the political sphere or in the health sphere, people like that. And I think that these would be tremendous educational enterprises that would continuously begin to lighten the, lighten our surface, and blow out all the false flags. They can't conduct false flags once we bring out our vibrations. What do you think about that concept?
I completely, wholeheartedly agree with you, Alfred.
Yeah, so
I think it's time.
Yeah. So I would love to engage in that kind of cooperative production with you, and we could start agreeing on dates, and I would go out and invite people, and you would go out and invite people, and we'd start bringing together a group of people. On the one hand, I could invite television personalities and former senators and people like that, and you'd invite, ambassadors from Agartha, and we'd start a dialogue, and we'd say, this person has met with the President of the United States. You've got to deal with them.
Exactly.
And we would start a dialogue.
And it's important to remember as well that Tamarinda, even though she presents herself quite simply and humbly, she is royalty. She is a royal member of Agartha. So she is, you could say, even beyond our state heads. So we will respectfully take in your suggestion, and we are happy to present it to her.
And I'll say this too, Alfred. There are many beings, many people watching you right now in this moment, and they're fully aware of intentions and heart resonance, and your call's already out there on a higher level, and they will respond. I know they will respond.
Okay.
It's time for this. It truly is. And given that mutual platform that you're offering says a lot about you, Alfred, and I'm so thankful for you and thankful for what you do. Your show, Exopolitics TV, is really opening up people's consciousness, their minds, their perceptiveness about the world around them. And we enjoy your shows. We watch your shows, even though we do our small little shows here and there. But we love your shows.
Don't minimize your shows. I learned a tremendous amount from the interview that you both did with Tamarinda. I mean, that was I really that's where I saw and I learned what was going on. I said, "Oh, wow, this is what's going on." And I went, and so we're all doing our bit, and we're collectively coming together now. And so there are these improvements in the technology that we have. And so these new technologies have suddenly come out that allow us to aggregate new audiences on Facebook. I mean, we can now broadcast in groups that are 150,000 members, which is kind of amazing. And you can then aggregate, you can take those links and link into 10 more groups that are 50,000 each. And you're doing that, and you're just propagating all of that information more. And it's just amazing. Anyway, those are the things that kind of excite me as a community broadcaster. I say, yeah, this is.
If I may, can I submit something to you?
I'm sorry?
If I may, can I submit an idea to you?
Yeah, sure.
There's been a lot of individuals that have been a part of Project Pegasus, the Pegasus Project. But no one's been able to pull everybody together. I'd like to put it out to everyone who's watching this that was a part of that project and sub-projects to come together, and let's break this vow of silence about time control,
Mhm.
time travel, and let's bring the people who are a part of these projects together, and let's really push it through this World Time Council, Alfred. I'm asking you to be a part of that. I'm asking you and Andy to be a part of it on a grassroots level, on a personal, people-to-people level, and develop this thing out to where we can educate folks about time control. And I know some of the folks are watching this are saying, well, what does this have to do with Agartha? What in the world does this have to do with Agartha? Well, just like a mosaic, things are so interconnected, you have no idea. And this technology is just a small part of ancient technology that was forgotten a very, very long time ago.
Isn't
And
that
it's
fascinating?
very relevant to the conversation that we're having here today with Alfred.
Isn't that fascinating? You know, and it's really fascinating, just kind of spinning I know that we're getting off our track.
Just a little.
And I'll just close my remarks with one little synchronistic anecdote, and that is that I was in Andy's Project Pegasus Facebook group, and the Project Pegasus being the time travel project that he was part of, DARPA time travel project, and which he and I were quantum entangled inside the Project Pegasus project because he was a childhood participant in 1971, and Project Pegasus time traveled my exopolitics book published in 2005 back to 1971 and brought it to him and his father and another person and opened it in one of the time travel satchels and showed it to him in 1971. So that's what they call time travel entanglement. And in 1971, when I was general counsel to the New York City EPA, about 50 CIA and DARPA officials who were connected to time travel invited me to a pseudo speech in which I thought I was briefing a group in New Jersey on environmental protection, what we did in New York City in environmental protection. And instead, I was briefing the DARPA CIA time travel group who had just brought back my book, and they were looking at me as a lab specimen. I call it time travel surveillance. So Andy and I then became time travel entangled. And so what you call time, let's bust the time control thing, I call let's break through the quantum cover-up. And so about just this past week, to make a long story short, I posted in the Project Pegasus and then, posted a bunch of other groups, a whole post about let's break through the quantum cover-up. So yeah, I'm with it. Let's do it.
All right. Alfred Weber's on board. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, so over to you.
Okay. So let's see. Getting back to the Agartha World Symposium.
Yeah.
Our next speaker was Owana Dembele, and Owana Dembele is a senior student of the School of Ancient Wisdom, a dear heart, and she spoke about the history of Romania. And she gave a lecture about the myths and the stories that were shared from childhood that Romanian children know as fact that are representative of the past. And she detailed her experience as a student of the Ancient School of Wisdom, and she talked about her journey and about learning about divinity and about nature. And she also talked about the ancient Dacian priestesses. And Natalie, would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. I really enjoyed her lecture because she focused on how women were, in fact, the leaders. And that was part of their initiation, creating a community, if you will, and getting people excited and informed about each respective community. So back then, it was, once again, a way of demonstrating their knowledge of the cosmos, of their own it's like an ancient school specifically for women. So these priestesses, these women were incredibly strong. They were leaders. They were the military generals, if you will. So if you will, so they were strong women who had just so much knowledge about how to create a different reality for their people. So I can't really go into the details because I myself am not a part of their school, but she did talk about some of those initiations. And there's a particular place in Romania where these priestesses would be initiated, and it was an extensive process all of its own. So that was quite unique.
I think talking about the divine sacred feminine was really the forefront of her discussion. And, you know, we when we talk about Agartha, you'll see that a lot of the people who are the leaders that are coming out, who are bringing information forward, are women. And it makes me think about what the Dalai Lama said, if you remember, about how that the woman would be coming forward. Gosh, what was his quote about the as like a leader to
when women take forefront.
I know that I'm help me out here, Alfred.
Sorry.
About how a woman would come forward, bring about certain information for humanity.
Sure. That you know, so many of the pendulums are just swinging, and it's the return of the divine feminine, and you know, it's part of probably so many cycles that are just shifting, and I know that Jerry, my wife, you know, who can talk about the time when the women were the leaders, and you know, and that it was just a whole, you know, cycles and cycles of that. So it's we're now shifting into the age of Aquarius, a much more balanced period. And I know that within myself, I feel that the feminine in me is coming forward, and that the yin aspects, you know, in my own consciousness are coming forward. And I believe that, you know, in males, the male role has to shift as well, and that males have to stop serving such a psychopathological role of war, you know, creating war, disease, crime, and poverty, which is what the males have been enrolled in.
Thank you for saying that, Alfred, because it goes back to what we were talking about, the balance.
Yeah.
About there being balance in every aspect of our lives.
Exactly.
I mean, we're a creation of duality, you know?
And that's also what Duncan spoke about, the balance between every being has that masculine and that feminine energy.
And that's the next speaker that had shown up at the Agartha World Symposium was Alexander Duncan Cameron. Mm-hmm. And people know him as Duncan Cameron, infamously tied into the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project. There's been a lot that's been said about both of those projects. Are they real? Are they myth? Was it just some sci-fi fantasy? And I can tell you that both of those are very real. They're not myth. The project names, Philadelphia experiment was Project Rainbow. It turned into a lot more. Various different spin-off projects. It's tied intimately into Project Pegasus. Certain individuals that are part of Project Pegasus are intertwined into the Philadelphia experiment and what is known as the Montauk Project. There's been various different spin-offs of certain technologies, different subgroups, different classifications and different names. But he made his presence there because he is interwoven into the reality matrix through these programs. And I do mean programs. When I say programs, the Montauk Project interfaced with reality as we know it and challenged reality as we know it. They were able to do some things that would absolutely blow your mind. The regular public perception of what is reality and what is possible. They pushed the envelopes under that project.
I like how you phrased it, Sandra. If you thought about it, they've already done it. That was back then.
That's what people need to understand, is that there is nothing new. There's nothing that hasn't been discovered from these people at the Montauk Project. And that's something that Duncan Cameron discussed at length. We had actually, Alfred, a radio show interview with him where he came out and publicly disclosed a lot about his life and about the project, both the dark side and some of the good stuff that came out of it. Believe it or not, there was some good that came out of it on our network of the World Global Radio, for folks to be able to check that out. But he himself is interwoven into the reality matrix that we all inhabit. His consciousness was projected into this reality matrix and interwoven into the reality that we all inhabit. I know that might be hard for some people to understand or grasp, but that's the reason why he was there, because this has to do with reality and consciousness, and it was very fitting to have him there. And he talked about the subconscious. He talked about the conscious aspects of the mind. He talked about our interconnectedness as humanity. And when Duncan started out in that project, he was a very different Duncan than the Duncan he is today. The Duncan that he was before wasn't so full of light, as you could say. But the Duncan that he is today is a person that understands that everything is interconnected. He's been able to integrate his own self to a fully functional being, because those who ran that project left him absolutely memory wiped to a level that he couldn't function as a human being. And he's been able, through years, to piece his life together, to regain his memories, the different things that he experienced during that project. He recounts a lot of the things that he did, both good and bad. And his whole thing is bringing this information forward in a responsible way.
To help free human beings from this matrix, because he understands, being someone that's interwoven with it, he knows how it functions, and he's trying to help people break free the way he was able to break free. Absolutely.
I mean, he went from the the bottom of the level, being in the most evil part of this project, to come into out the other end of the spectrum, so to speak. And he's a very gentle and loving man. He is completely different than the Duncan he was when he was a part of this project or program for the Montauk Project. And he believes that everything has, every person has the, as he says it, everyone has the will to evolve. How does he say it? To defend and evolve. He believes that everyone should be able to free themselves of what's been put upon them from the controllers. He should know, because he was a part of this whole thing. He knows who the controllers are, and he is fully on Team Light. I can tell you that wholeheartedly. And he wants to make sure that everyone has a way to break free of this malevolent, over-controlling aspect to some of these projects that was made to control reality and subject the human population to what they are currently in. And with Duncan's participation there, he told his life story. He really talked about his programming and what had been done to him at Montauk and how he got involved and the emotional challenges and the side effects. And he lightened it up because these things can break you or make you stronger. And he's been able to take his experiences, and he completely works towards helping humanity and supporting humanity. And you're going to start seeing him coming out more, Alfred, for humanity and trying to help people, using the information that he's been able to experience and through the Montauk Project.
He's done a lot of research over the course of the years himself, so him being involved and being a receiver a lot of this research, he himself has acquired information to help people, like, once again, break free, and that involves mentally, breaking free. It involves person on a soul level as well, archetypes. There's just so much, and he knows how to work with energy in a way that is quite unique. So
yeah. So he gave a really great presentation. Everyone loved him there. He made a lot of folks laugh. He's very lighthearted.
Sense of humor.
He's got a great sense of humor. And I hope that I can connect you with him, Alfred. Because truly, I really wish I could connect you with him, because it's time for this to come forward.
Right.
It's time for those people that were a part of these projects to come together if we want this true disclosure. It is time. The time is now for this to happen.
Yeah.
Everything had to line itself up. And this goes back to the Agartha World Symposium. And you're saying, well, what does this have to do with the Philadelphia experiment or Project Montauk or Pegasus or all this? It's about reality and consciousness.
Right.
And that brings us back to Tamarinda and the Maasen family. Their family crest is, let me show this to you. And this is in her background here. If you can see her family crest right here.
Right.
And their family crest is representative of what they're all about. And they're the defenders of consciousness, Alfred.
Really?
And Maasen is another word for mother.
Oh.
And their family is about defending consciousness for humanity. And she set this up. They set this up. And this was something that was a disclosure in the making. Years and years of planning throughout space-time, time-space, however you want to put it, went into making this one moment in time happen.
Wow.
Because out of this one moment in time is going to cascade a catalyst, if you will, for disclosure on an exponential level over the next 7 years.
Right.
That includes perceptiveness opening up, perception, consciousness expansion for humanity. People learning about these programs, these government programs, the people involved in these programs, about consciousness and reality and how that's interwoven and how all these things connect certain people, places, and times.
And also,
people ask, go ahead, Natalie.
I was going to say something that she will be speaking about more in the future would be in relation to, once again, humanity, 23rd and 24th chromosome. She did not go into detail about it at this point because, once again, everything has a time space. But that was something. And this, once again, also ties into other aspects, which if you do look into the books written by Radu Sinamar, what we do here, what we're doing now in this time space, in this quantum space now, has effects not just on this Earth, but on every other planet and throughout the universes. And it extends, and it's something that is, once again, it connects to Io. And if you look into some of the research that's being done on Europa, it makes you wonder, why is there research on Europa? What does that have to do with humanity and that focus?
What does it have to do with the Agartha World Symposium?
Exactly.
Well, a lot.
And its connection to Romania, which they, once again, they state is the birthplace, the original birthplace of humanity. So you kind of have to take everything that's been presented and once again connect those dots, which is what we're trying to do here. But once again, there's research.
Well, let's connect a couple of dots for them.
Okay.
In Transylvania Moonrise, the book by Radu Sinamar, there's a conversation that I have with Peter Moon and about David Anderson and the 23rd and 24th chromosome. And I would invite anyone to look that up. You might be able to find a copy of that on Google for free. But if you have a chance to get it, read that passage about the 24th and 24th chromosome. Tamarinda herself will be speaking a lot more about that in the future, I'm sure. In regards to Europa, it's intimately connected to the Antarctic, about what was found in the Antarctic. Recently, quote unquote, and I say it isn't too recent, but it's just made its way out to all of you out there. In regards to the pyramids, that was also discussed in Radu Sinamar's book, The Secret Parchment, and what is really found there. And I invite you to look that up as well, because it talks intimately about the discovery found in the Antarctic, what it is, how it's tied to Europa as a cosmic buoy, so to speak, and about how it's all interconnected with humanity's consciousness. We see recently, and I say recently, that there have been a large exodus of exopolitical figures going to the Antarctic. Former astronauts and whatnot going there, and certain political leaders and presidents and religious leaders. And this is all interconnected to what's coming out of Romania and Agartha and Antarctic and the Hyperbaryans. And more information is going to be coming forward. I know that there's a lot of folks that say that they're authority on these things and are talking on different channels and whatnot. But I can tell you that they're repeating information that's being given to them. What makes Tamarinda different is that she's the person releasing the information. She's the person that's putting out the information so that you folks know about it. She's intimately involved in that. She's intimately involved in all levels of government. She herself has a position in government in Romania. A lot of figures come to her and actually ask for her advice about many things. And I'm not going to say anything that hasn't already been published here, because Peter Moon has already let the cat out of the bag as far as her holding position in the military over in Romania. It's published in his recent book. He let that out of the bag. She holds many different positions.
Could you be more explicit about?
Yes, she is a general in the Romanian military. That's one of many positions that she.
Tamarinda Maasen is.
Tamarinda Maasen.
Aha. Maybe that's why there were so many military intelligence observers at the conference, at the symposium.
Well, they came up to her because they wondered what she was going to put out there. They're a little nervous. And she had a really great conversation with them. And she relaxed them. And they ended up actually sharing stories about their own personal experiences with her. And she actually consulted with them at the conference itself. So you can see that there was a little turn of energy there that she was able to do. But there's what I'm trying to say here is that Tamarinda Maasen, on the surface level, she looks like a human being just like anybody else. On the surface level, she looks like a person who runs a clinic in Romania. On the surface level, she could look like a person who's among the highest echelons of power. She has many different positions, but there's a lot more to her. And what people should know is that she is an interdimensional being. They were able to meet a interdimensional being. And I really want you guys to really sit with that. You met an interdimensional being in physical form.
Right. So it would be different terms have been used over the ages: ascended master, interdimensional being. Is it in that kind of ballpark, would you say?
I use that as, unfortunately, a human label, because that's the only thing I can give it to touch people in different levels of comprehension.
Her physicality is an avatar. She herself is not, once again, it's an avatar. She's much more and much taller, as she herself revealed at the symposium.
For example, when she was speaking, her eyes went from, you would say, human eyes,
Yeah.
to more of an extraterrestrial slant, okay? And I had a conversation with her. I said, Tamarinda, do you realize that your eyes were shifting during your presentation? She says, I know.
Wow.
I know.
And that's another thing to mention, Sandra. And, you know, people want extraterrestrials to suddenly appear in front of them, not realizing, one, on a psychological level, the shock, of course, and two, the fact that in the presence of certain beings, especially high frequency beings such as herself, we would not, the human body is not meant to, and I would say a normal human body is not meant to handle the extreme energy. It would cause someone to literally faint. So she did not transform for those reasons. You know, it would just be overwhelming to a being.
Now,
You know,
sorry.
I was going to say about the psychology of exopolitics. I think that that's something that really needs to be addressed that really isn't addressed in exopolitics.
Right.
And about how these cosmic cultures, and that's a word that I use, and it's very vast that I'm using that word, have their own psychology, so to speak. They don't think like human beings think. And we have a lot of human beings who are seeing these things happen and commenting on a human level. But you have to understand that each one of these cultures think differently than you. They have different ways of how would you say, different ways that they approach things.
The way they speak.
The way
we're
that
not
they
talking about language. We're talking about their how
they communicate. Okay. One thing that you've seen at the symposium, if you attended, is a shift in how people communicate. For example, with myself, it was a process of interfacing with her and her team. And sometimes it was challenging because I had to learn their ways. I had to learn how to interact with them. And sometimes it was very challenging for me because at my stage, I still haven't evolved to a certain level of consciousness, and they were very patient with me. On another side, with the Anunnaki, which I have interactions with, have had interactions with, and have met, they themselves have a different level of consciousness in interaction with human beings. This is extremely important for all of you out there to understand. Before you can understand the whole mysteries of this universe, there are many universes, this universe, everything begins with a dialogue. and you have to understand how to speak to these people first. And that's exactly what happened here at this symposium. You were given the opportunity to interface and speak with these people, to learn the process of communication.
Now, if I could ask you from a hermeneuticist point of view, does Tamarinda Maasen and this emergence of disclosure, does that fit in with, because prophecy was mentioned earlier in our webinar, does that fit in with prophecy and prophetic tradition as to this would be happening at this time, etc.?
One word, yes. And I go back to the secret parchment once again. I would have your viewers and listeners go back to the secret parchment again, because that book is so important for humanity to read. It truly is. Hopefully, she'll speak more about that. I hope that you'll have her back, Alfred, to where you can discuss that.
It's the other way around.
Okay.
Everything has that time space, as we say, or
Right.
quantum space, if you will. And once again, it comes back to people's perception. Are they ready to receive more? So that's on her end, I suppose, and we'll wait and see what she has to say.
As you'll see that every
Is she just to, so that people, because there are all sorts of minds out there now, and from a hermeneuticist point of view, let's say in our surface culture, we've been looking at the book of Revelation, we've been looking at the Hopi prophecy, we've been looking at the Old and New Testament, we've been looking at all these other prophecies. So does Tamarinda Maasen and that Agarthan phenomenon fit within that? Does that fit within that? Or is this a wholly different phenomenon? Is it in Nostradamus, for example? These are just technical questions. It's not, any hidden agenda or anything.
what you want me to?
There are things that cannot be said at this time because that would be for her to disclose. We have our own interpretation, but once again, without her express permission, we cannot just say this is what she has in mind or what has been planned or her intention, because that would be for her to say.
Yeah.
But can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Because I want to answer you in a way that I personally can answer you.
Yeah.
I think it's more than that. I think it's more than the book of Revelation. I think it's more than the Hopi prophecy. We're talking about reality as we know it.
Right.
We're talking about macro and micro here. And this is bigger than that. It truly is. And when you think about reality, once again, thinking about perception and perceptiveness, and this is also a lesson in opening up our consciousness. The things that happen in the book of Revelation, the things about happen in the Hopi prophecy, they're just frames of a movie. Okay? There's a bigger picture. You're seeing something on a small screen. That's where she's at.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I know that we've been with you for quite some time here. Alfred, and as a producer, I'm thinking, how in the world are you going to break this interview up?
No, I have to say that when I first read Natalie's article, that to me was a revelation. I said, oh, boom, because it communicated the revelation at the symposium, to me, and I went, oh, boom, wow, this is the, oh, I get it. And it was a real transmission. And so I see what you're saying. So I'm kind of asking questions, oh, well, what hermeneutical, peg does that fit into, and that's like the old world, it's not Nostradamus, it's not, and so all these guys, all the old time prophets in the Old and New Testament and Nostradamus were looking at the Matrix game. They weren't looking at this new earth, the new earth, which is the real earth, which is what I think Tamarinda was talking about, if I'm mistaken. Yeah. Well, to answer your question about this is why the webinar is a new form. It's kind of like a graduate seminar.
Right?
It's not really an interview. It's kind of like a seminar. It's a webinar. And that's what it is. And so it's part of the University of Life. And I really am very, very grateful that we were able to come together today and do this. Now, do you either or both of you, was there something that you had wanted to say today that you have not yet had the opportunity to say? Some items?
On my level, if I may, I echo the sentiment that we're all interconnected, like a beautiful mosaic, and that everything that we do, from the least to the greatest, makes a difference. You want disclosure. Once again, you are disclosure. You want this information to come forward. They're coming forward. It's up to you whether or not that you open your perceptiveness, your perception, to see the beings that are making themselves known at this time space. There are many benevolent beings that are in this process. Practice discernment. It's super important. When you have certain individuals coming forward, follow that inner compass within inside of yourself, which is your heart. That heart intelligence will tell you whether someone is being, how would you say, truthful? Follow that. Follow that. Trust that. That heart intelligence is intelligence all to itself. Listen to that. I mean, we're so up here in our minds that we forget this intelligence in our heart. Follow that. There's a lot of change coming up, a lot of things that are going to be happening politically, environmentally, geographically, out there. A lot of celestial things will be affecting our planet. And it's very important that we go into our heart space and listen to the intelligence of our heart and discern the information that's coming forward. You know the truth when you hear it. It's that little voice here, not here, that tells you what's real. And I think that that's the greatest message that I could leave any one of your viewers that is listening to this. Hopefully you're not asleep. I know that we've gone on for quite a few hours. But listen to your heart. Practice that discernment. Know that there's a lot more out there than you can ever imagine. And that it's real. It's real. And these beings want to come forward. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for your perceptiveness to open up, your consciousness to expand, your hearts to unfold. You know, I was told that out of all the species that exist in this universe, this known universe, there was a discussion that had occurred between various different life forms. And it is the human being that is the most resilient. Think about that. You're very, very, very special.
Yeah.
I would echo that, actually. We're waiting for, or I would say we, people, are waiting for extraterrestrials, but they have no idea how incredible their souls are. This avatar is a divine creation, and it has a beauty and a symmetry all of its own. But in its true essence, it's connected to God. And what people don't realize is that there are other extraterrestrial cultures who are not connected to God. And it's not a matter of good and evil. It's just their soul. Our souls are different from their souls. What we have is a true connection to God. And as you say, you call it the spark. We're sparks, and we're part of that mosaic. We are that aspect of God that is incarnated. And regardless of all the genetic experiments that have occurred within our DNA, within our matrix of our being, at our core, we are that soul that is connected to God. And that cannot be taken away from us, no matter the mind control, no matter the genetic experimentation, no matter the subjugation of the human being. That Atlantean soul is so incredibly powerful. And that's why these beings are coming to us. Even though we are in a state of amnesia, we are who we are. And now it's a matter of remembrance.
Remember, you're a spark of source. Remember that you're a spark of source and that we're all connected.
Very profound. Yeah, I really get that resonance from you both in my heart. How can people who want to get in touch with you and really continue the connection that they feel here, how can they do that?
Well, we started our own community platform. It's called Earth Hope. And it's for the people, by the people. And it's a social platform all to itself. If you were to take Facebook and Woodstock and blend it together, that's what we've created. And Earth Hope is a platform for those who are just like us, who are like you, who are watching this program right now, to come and to talk and to share. And we have meditations that we're getting ready to start over there. These meditations were from my time before at LPGC, even before that, where I was involved with a lot of We Maker stuff and about helping humanity. Yes, the We Makers are real, okay? A lot of people don't know whether they're real or not. If it was just a story it was created, they're real. It's real.
Forgetting labels.
They're us from the future, essentially.
Yes.
They're us from the future, trying to guide humankind about what's going to happen and unfold. But yeah, they're very real. But these meditations are extension of that. We're creating our own quantum communities, our own sovereign integral network, so to speak. And we're asking you to be a part of that. What we do, our thoughts, change reality, creates reality, shifts reality. When you put your heart, your mind, your soul together, you can change the reality that you inhabit, this matrix that you inhabit. It's very powerful. It can change anything. And these meditations are to foster that, to develop that into the human being. It's an extension of that. And it's a part of the Earth Hope community. And we're going to be starting those meditation sessions up very soon. And notification will go out to earthhopecommunity.com. That's earthhopecommunity.com. Also, we have our own network called the Other World Global Network. It's otherworldglobalnetwork.com, and you can connect with both Natalie and I there. You can email us. We do get tons of email, so please know if we can't return it right away, that each one of your emails are read, because we value your time, and we know that all the time that you take in order to compose that email, we are definitely going to respond to you. Okay? We're not untouchable, meaning we don't keep you at arm's length. We want to have that connection with all of you out there, because that's what it's about. It's about that connection. It's about us all finding each other and coming together. Separations were put on us. It's time that we all come together. And one thing that we want to announce on your program, Alfred, if we have your permission.
Sure.
We have an event coming up. And it's going to be the largest disclosure event in human history.
Wow. Now that's a tall order.
It is a tall order, but you know what? With us all coming together, I know that we can do it.
I can see how you could meet that tall order.
Well, I believe that when we all come together towards a common goal, that we can manifest that event. And the name of the event is The Event. It's called the Event Conference, and it's going to be in December.
Conference. Now, whoa, you amaze me. You totally amaze me. You're an amazing person. Both of you are an amazing people. You just keep on, dimensions of you that are unseen, keep on folding out. The event.
It's the event. It's the event that everyone's been waiting for.
The event, no, but you said the event conference or something?
Yes, it's called the Event Conference.
Okay.
It just went live on Facebook today. You can look it up on Facebook at the Event Conference on Facebook. You can go over to theeventlive.com, theeventlive.com.
Wow.
More information is going to be coming out to humanity about that. And we're asking for guest speakers to put forward proposals right now. We're reaching out to everyone. We're reaching out to everyday people.
Yeah. Will you accept remote guest speakers?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
I put in my proposal, but currently I'm not visiting the United States of America. So.
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Oh, I've been in exile for a number of years. You didn't know that?
I did not know that, Alfred. we must get you transported over here to the States. We must talk to whoever we need to get you over here. What in the world?
No idea. Not even Tamarinda Maasen could give me safe transit.
Well, we'll have to bring you in remotely if you'll accept our invitation to speak at this event conference.
Oh yeah, no, I will come in. Listen, I'm the judge that found George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and company, war criminals. They can't travel the planet anymore for fear of arrest. So their thing is, well, we still control the U.S., so you can't come here. And
Interesting.
I was invited down to down to Yale, Washington,
Okay.
to give a talk at the first annual Yale, Washington UFO conference at the end of August,
Okay.
at the end of July 2017. And they were going to give me a Lifetime Achievement Award. And the universe, and that is where I was going to announce publicly for the first time and give my first public presentation on the Jimmy Carter, Andrew Basiago, and Alfred Lamont Weber UFO abductions, because all three of us were abducted by the same extraterrestrials in an interrelated way. It's like Jimmy Carter and Andy Basiago were bookend US presidents that were abducted by the same UFO, the two disclosure presidents. And I was like the intermediary that helped Jimmy Carter and became his director of UFO affairs. And then I've been helping Andy, I got quantum entangled with him, and now he and I are working together. So that's how it works, but it's all done up on the ships. You see what I'm saying? So, and people can go to exopolitics.com if they want to watch the presentation, which is on video there. But there was no way that I could get across the border. There's like a physical barrier. So there's like a time sink. I cannot cross that border. So I have to go there remotely. So I'll come in via Skype or something like that. But I will make a proposal, and your committee can duly, look at it and say, well, okay, you can be a speaker or whatever.
Wonderful.
Anyway.
We're honored to have you, Alfred.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to. But anyway, that's the story behind it. And it's really hard to explain, but, it's at some other level. I think that Tamarinda got it. I think that she got it as to why I couldn't attend the conference. That's the reason I couldn't go to the conference. And I have a real hard reason to say it, but it has to do with dimensions up there. And because the Illuminati, it's like, oh, well, you got us. If you come, U.S. is off limits because it's still controlled by the mob,
Well, we're going to be breaking a lot of barriers with this conference.
Oh,
and
good.
We're going to have 30 speakers. It's going to be talking about everything that you can think of.
Great.
Bring everyone together in many different backgrounds. There's more information at the eventlive.com for those who are interested in learning more about it. We're going to have videos released, Alfred. We're going to talk with people on a very personal level what it's about. Because it's time. It's time for this disclosure to come forward. It's going to come from all of you. You, like I said, you are disclosure. And I hope that you'll join us in this initiative.
Oh, yeah.
That we call the event live, the event conference, to bring forward this information. We're going to be talking to people from the exopolitics community, people from science community, people from ancient archaeology. Everybody is coming forward to share certain disclosures with humanity because it's time. It's time for all of this information to come forward. It's no more about hiding this information from human beings. They're aware. They're self-aware. And you got to think about how to present this information to them. Well, this is a larger live platform in person that people can come to. Like I said, it'll be people from science, academics, authorities, but it'll also be people just like you out there. Don't let that intimidate you from sending in a proposal. We want to hear from you, okay? We want to hear from all you guys.
Do you have a date for it and a place for it yet?
Yes, we have a date. It's going to be in December 2018. And the location, I like to hold that back for right now, if that's okay, for many reasons.
Yeah, I can see that. But, oh, great. So this is going to be the culminating event of 2018.
Absolutely. And we invite you all to be a part of this disclosure process.
Right.
It doesn't come from, the highest echelons of power that have to disclose this. It just takes us all getting together who all have certain key pieces to make this truth embargo come to break.
That is absolutely,
Think about that.
yeah. And sure, and I would like to, and sure, and will you be having a feed, a feed from it and everything?
We're going. This is where we're going to have a feed. We're going to have a feed. But this is where we're going to have people involved in this process.
Yeah.
And unlike other events, I'm going to encourage everyone to take out their cell phones and broadcast this to every end of this globe.
Oh, this is great, because I'm volunteering my webinar capacity to if you give me access, I will broadcast. I will broadcast. I'm certainly going to broadcast my speech live on Facebook and live all over the world.
Well, see, I think that right there is something that certain individuals are counting on for this information not to go forward. Okay.
Oh.
So if we remove those blocks and allow people to take video of this, to bring their phones, to broadcast it from their phones, to give them permission to do just that
On every social media
on
platform.
every level,
Yeah.
it's going to break that silence, this so-called code of silence that they have put down across us, and we'll never be in that position like we were for the Agartha Symposium,
Oh, yeah.
where this information can't get out, Alfred, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to open it up to everybody for this to be broadcast live as it happens.
So as much access as you afford News Inside Out to the conference, we will broadcast that as
Excellent.
widely as we can. So
Excellent.
know that that's our contribution as a news organization. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alfred. Thank you so much. Natalie, did you have anything that you wanted to say in regards to our upcoming anything?
Oh, yes, we do have an upcoming event here in Louisville, Kentucky. It's going to be December of this year. In fact, Duncan Cameron is making a very rare public appearance. And for those of you who are interested in learning more and just being a part of this Be Free event, where once again, he's going to go in depth about energy work and how to help people release themselves from the matrix. This is the opportunity, because he does not invite people to his home. He does not do anything like that one-on-one live in person experience. This would be the time to do so.
This is a very rare opportunity for people to meet Duncan Cameron live and in person here in Louisville, Kentucky. It's going to be December 9th and 10th. You can go to www.duncancameronrealitywalker.net, and you can see the listing for this event. He's going to have an all-new website coming out that we're helping him on, because we know that he has a lot to offer to humanity to help free them from what has been done. And that's going to be coming out soon, DuncanCameronRealityWalker.net. The full presence for that will be coming out very soon, but for right now, you can see the listing for this upcoming event that we're having here in Louisville, Kentucky. And just know that we want to have a very personal relationship with all of you out there. We're all a part of this disclosure process. And honestly, united, we stand. Divided, we truly do fall. And I think that we should all reach across the table, so to speak, check our egos at the door, and say, look, if we're going to make this disclosure truly happen, we really do need to reach across to each person that we might have not talked to, we might have had disagreements with in the past. we might have philosophical differences, or shoot, we might not just like the person's shoes. Who knows? But the thing is this, Alfred. You know, we're all connected in here, and we all want to know the truth on a very, very deep level. And together, we can bring that about. And the Agartha Humanity World Symposium was just a small part in this 7-year disclosure process. And we're asking you to join us, all of you out there, in this disclosure initiative for humanity. Thank
Wonderful.
you so much for your time.
Well, I just want to extend our thanks, and on behalf of all those watching, extend their thanks for all that you have done on behalf of world disclosure, which is enormous, and also for having brought the tremendous amount of information that you brought today. And this is being broadcast on Facebook Live now, and it will be out over the next day or two, depending on, you know, just how I put it together. It'll be out, and I'll get you the links. It'll be out on Exopolitics TV. We'll be putting it out on News Inside Out. We'll be putting together an article, and we'll be distributing it, and we'll be sending you all of the links to that, and then feel free to send that out as you see fit. And we also look forward to working with you, not only on the event live and the event conference, but also to reaching out to educational webinars that we can make with the larger Agartha-oriented community, who I'll be reaching out with, sending copies of this program to Juana Dembella and to Tamarinda and everybody that I know that have been involved in, and kind of see if we can get some things into Peter Moon and people like that. I've been kind of out of action because I was, you know, had some incoming, but now we'll be able to start all of that round again. So,
Well, if I may just say one thing,
yeah,
we like to express our heart's gratitude
yeah,
to Tamarinda Maasen
yeah,
for the opportunity that she's given to us
yeah,
to learn from her, to speak with her, to be in
Yeah.
her presence. And we hope that this program that we've done with you today
yeah,
is honoring of her and her work that she does to help humanity. I also like to thank Peter Moon for the opportunity that he gave me a very, very long time ago to understand more about these things. I'd like to thank Dr. David Lewis Anderson for his contributions to humanity. I'd like to thank Duncan Cameron for him stepping forward and sharing what needs to be heard and to help humanity at this time. I'd like to thank Theodore Maasen. There's so much going to come forward from Theodore. Juana Dembele for her wisdom that she's bringing forward about the sacred feminine. And I'd like to thank all those souls who were called to the symposium for hearing and listening with your heart. I hope that you got a lot out of the symposium. There's so much more coming forward. And to all of humanity, know that everything that's breaking right now, there's going to be so much more over the next 7 years. And that together, we're going to make this disclosure process happen. It's already happened. Think about that. It's already happened.
What you just said was so wonderful. And it's funny because where you use the word disclosure, I would use the word ascension, but that's just another word.
Well, we love you, Alfred. We love you. We love you. We love all of you guys. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Okay, then. Bye-bye, and thank you.